words of Jesus seem contrary, backwards. He says, "Don't think that I have come to bring peace on the earth. I have come to bring the sword." So it sounds like he's against peace and he wants fighting and conflict. But when we think of a sword will slice. And we have the word in our language, decide, and it does mean to cut. So whenever a person makes a decision, they choose one and not the other. They detach from one option and attach to the other. There is a cut, maybe a cutoff from people or places or things so as to go in a different direction. Jesus invites us to be his disciples. And sometimes disciples are rejected by family and friends because of their intense desire to serve God. An example, Aloysius Gonzaga. He lived in the 1500s in Florence, and that was a society of fraud, dagger, poison, and lust. He was the son of a princely family. He grew up in royal courts. His father wanted him to be a military hero. So at age 5, his father had little Aloysius marching in the army camp. He wanted his son from a very early age to get used to the idea that this was his vocation. Your vocation is to be a warrior. You're going to learn how to march and use weapons and so forth. But at the same time, his mother was very devout and was teaching him about Jesus and the saints and devotion. And we're told in the writings about Aloysius that at age 7, he experienced a vocation. He began to pray devoutly. He prayed the Psalms. He prayed the office of Mary. Well, time went on, and his father continued to pressure him into the military role. His mother was continuing to give him spiritual guidance. And at age 11, Aloysius began to practice austerities like fasting on his own. Well, then at age 13, he and his parents traveled, and they went to Spain, and he acted as a page in the court of Philip II. The more Aloysius saw of court life, the more disillusioned he began. And then he started learning about the saints. He started reading about the saints. He read about Jesuit missionaries going to faraway places. And now he and his father continued to struggle for the next 4 years about his vocation. Aloysius wanted to become a Jesuit, and his father could not understand that at all. His father thought, well, you can be a military leader, you can have lots of fame and fortune, you could be a church leader, you could be in charge of a large parish or diocese. But no, Aloysius wanted to be one of these missionaries who would serve the people. So his dream was to go to India to be a missionary, but that would never work out. He studied in Rome, and it happened that in the year 1591, a plague struck. And many people were sick and dying, and the leader of the Jesuits and many of the members of the order began to take care of those who were sick and dying, who were infected with the plague. They fed them, they bathed them, they did all the necessary things that would happen in a hospital or a nursing home to attend to people who couldn't do for themselves. But then Aloysius caught the disease himself. He was so weak that he could not leave his bed, but he continued to pray even when he couldn't get up and go to the chapel or to Mass. And 3 months later, he died on the feast of Corpus Christi. So he was only 23 years old. So we see the words of Jesus exemplified in the life of Aloysius. His father was pulling him one way, his mother was showing him another way, and God had a plan for him, that he would not be rich and famous, that he would not be powerful, but he would be a soldier in God's army. He would do the work that seemed very insignificant. He would pray instead of going to parties, and that he was responding to the vocation of holiness. So in our time, in our culture, to strive for holiness can be seen as odd or unusual, but this is the vocation for each and every one of us, to be people of prayer, to be people of service. So when Jesus says he's bringing the sword, that's the sword of decision. And when we decide to follow the will of our Heavenly Father, then we do have peace.